So many things are cracking down right now. I don't know if you can feel it, but I certainly can. I'm seeing it and I am feeling it. So we are coming to the end of January here, getting close, but we are definitely coming to the end of Capricorn being in the sun. And what does that mean? Okay, Teresa, what's the deal with that? Well, it's a big deal because I've talked about astrology quite a bit. And for those of you that follow and listen to these things I've been saying, I've been talking a lot about how Saturn and Pluto have been in Capricorn. And this month, January, has been a very kind of cataclysmic time in astrology of where these two partners, these two planets that are partnering right now, along with the sun being a Capricorn, at least for the sun being a Capricorn, has not happened for 29 years. And then let alone Saturn and Pluto being in Capricorn hasn't happened for hundreds of years. So as we come out of this Capricorn sun, which will not be in these three planets, will not be in the same place. Actually, Saturn and Capricorn will not be in the same place for 29 years. That's what I'm talking about. I know I'm confusing you, but bear with me here because this is all very archetypal. That we are really talking about, if I'm going to speak in plain English here, we are talking about the hierarchy and the paradigms of those hierarchy coming down. And not only externally that we're seeing it, but we are also feeling it internally. And what I mean by that is, it's like this is a very much a turning point for you in your life right now of what paradigm is dismantling for you inside that you feel. What are you struggling with right now? Because I know that you are. I just know it. How can you not be with what's going on? We all are at different degrees and varying levels of it. And so it's really asking us to go inside and look at our value system, and not just look at it and say, oh yeah, I want connection, I want intimacy, I want family, I want health, those kinds of things. Is making a list of somewhere between 7 to 10 values that you have in your life that you are either implementing or not implementing, that are really important to you, and that every single day are the choices that you're making in aligned with those values. You just go back to that because we're seeing that right now. That's where the shadow is being so confronted, and it's doing everything it can to hide right now. And so look at that in your life. Like, what are you doing right now to hide from the truth of what you know? And if you are not, and you're facing it, right on. Here's the thing about this whole shadow stuff that I've been talking about for quite some time. It's nothing new. It's been around forever, number one, but it's really been talked about since the late 1800s, early 1900s, when Carl Jung, the depth psychologist, coined the word shadow and bring definition to this archetype of this word. And in the understanding of shadow, we know it's what we keep hidden, not only in the darkness of ourself, but even us showing our own light. But right now I want to talk about it in terms of the darkness. So I started studying the shadow back in the early 1990s. Excuse me. And it's something that I was just drawn to. It had everything to do with my own personal story, as well as just how I'm oriented in this life, of where I do a lot of my work. My work comes from helping people to look at their own shadow and own it and transform it. So back a few years ago, back even before, I'd say somewhere like in 2015, I started really talking more about the shadow. And it hasn't been until, because this is what was going on, right? This is what was being really brought to the forefront of what we were seeing, is looking at shadow, like what is not in alignment with light, what is being kept hidden, because we are moving toward a time we are trying to get to the truth of life in itself, not only for the external part of life and the macrocosm of life, but the microcosm within ourself. Like, oh yeah, let's be empowered, let's be authentic. Really? Okay, so what does that really mean? It's like, we got to own our shit here, folks. That's what we have to do. And so over the last year, I've been really pressing this shadow piece because the astrology is showing that, is that we really have to look at what is being hidden. And think of the shadow as this. I was talking to a friend of mine, a fellow astrologer, and we were talking about the shadow, and I was telling him, I said, the shadow's like this little, imagine this little ball of darkness that's behind your couch in your living room. And it's there, but you really can't see it because every time you try to look, it moves to a different spot. And so what you do is you get the couch and you move it away, and that shadow just kind of squirms to another place and finds another hidden spot. It's like trying to catch a cat when it doesn't want to be caught. I mean, cats are so much, such a shadow animal, and I don't mean that in a negative way, although it can be. It's because they're so elusive, right? And so we're trying to catch this thing that doesn't want to be caught. And when it is exposed, what it can do is it can morph into something else. It'll morph into something else because it is a shapeshifter. That's what the shadow is. It's a shapeshifter. It'll move into something else, and it'll have smoke and mirrors like, I don't want you to see what's behind the big curtain, like in The Wizard of Oz. Like the great and powerful Oz, here he is, but what's behind the curtain is this little person, is this little man or woman. It's not even about gender here. So think about that, that's what's going on right now, is that we are trying to hide from the light on some level inside of ourselves. Some of us to varying degrees and than others. But the shadow is on deck here. It's on trial. And this isn't about, it isn't about a particular person. It is about a paradigm that we have constructed in our psyche and in our culture. And that's what we're trying to overthrow here. It is not about the person. It's about the paradigm. It's about the hierarchy. It's about the patriarch. How do we transcend this within ourselves? Because when we are able to transcend this within ourselves, then we transcend it outside, as so below, so within, as so without, as so everything else in this world. So there's some food for thought there. Check in with your value system. Take a look at the shadow. Try to look at things from a more symbolic and metaphoric place. You'll be able to see the answers that are not so linear, because the linear mind is limited in what it's able to see. We have to go beyond and go to the metaphoric and the symbolic when we're looking at things that we want to get into depth with. And as far as the astrology, there's so many people out there that want to make it about horoscopes, and it can be that. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the collective themes of energy. Depth psychologist Carl Jung, he coined the word shadow, as I said. He coined the word the collective conscious. He was an astrologer. He was a therapist. There are many therapists out there right now that use astrology because now they're finally seeing, we can get to the psychology of an individual like that. If you're an accurate astrologer, you can do it. That's what I do. I look at the psychology of the chart, and I look at the soul contract. And that comes from my ability as an intuitive, and my ability to be able to read people and to enter into their own energy field and help them find their soul purpose and help them understand their story. So I know I've said a lot. I know I'm kind of hyper about it, but there is just so much going on. And so, what needs to break down for you? What needs to be reestablished? No, what needs to be established? Because it's not about a reestablishing. It is about establishing something new. How do you transcend your own patriarchy? How do you transcend your own relationship to power? Not being power over, but power with. Who are you struggling with? Who are you being challenged by? What are you being challenged by? Could be multiple things. I hope this was of some help. Please feel free to reach out to me. Direct message me. I love to help you on your process of where you're at. It's what I do. It's what I love doing. It's what I live for. Namaste.